Myst, Might, Mayhem. By Han Jung-Leolya. Chapter 14. Negotiation. Part 1. At those words that came out of Mok Jaeonun's mouth, Guard Go-chan's expression stiffened. The Manor Master was safe, so there was no need to hide it, but Go-chan never expected Mok Jaeonun to directly mention it. No, how did he? Did he really want to provoke the first madam, Lady Suk, that badly? That was practically her secret. Revealing that he knew about it could easily lead to his death in this very place. Damn it! Go-chan, tensed up, glanced at Lady Suk. As expected, Lady Suk's expression had turned even more venomous than usual. However, anger didn't immediately pour out of her mouth. That was because, this bastard. From the beginning, she had come here because she suspected that Mok Jaeonun might have seen or found out something. But Mok Jaeonun's attitude was completely unexpected. Admitting that he knew her secret was no different from asking to be killed. What is his intention? Did this wretched fellow think he had the upper hand because he held her weakness, making him act boldly? If that was the case, he had made a grave mistake. In any case, this fellow was also someone who needed to be dealt with if Mok Young-ho became the Manor Master. Grab. Lady Suk's hand swiftly grabbed Mok Jaeonun's neck like a snake targeting its prey. Seeing her movement, Guard Go-chan could be certain. She, hailing from the martial arts family of Jinhwa Suk clan, was definitely a first-rate expert. No one but Master Gam could match her. That also meant that Mok Jaeonun couldn't handle her. Huh? Mok Jaeonun's eyes flickered with interest as his neck was grabbed. He was inwardly surprised by her unexpectedly strong force and unique hand technique. Is this woman strong? The information file stated that she would have considerable martial arts skills as she was from the Jinhwa Seaka clan. But if she was this strong, she was much more powerful than Go-chan. Interesting. Lady Suk's wrist was extremely slender. It was no different from any other woman's, yet it possessed such strength. Indeed, the power of martial arts was mysterious. Seeing Mok Jaeonun's reaction, Lady Suk's eyes narrowed. This fellow. She had grabbed his neck to intimidate him, implying that she could take his life at any moment, but far from being afraid, he didn't even show a hint of perplexity. She hadn't seen him often because he wasn't her own child, but did this child have this much guts? Rather, she knew him to be the most timid among his half-siblings. You. That single word that came out of Lady Suk's mouth. Hearing it, Guard Go-chan swallowed his saliva. Could it be that they were exposed? Come to think of it, wouldn't a first-rate expert be able to discern whether the other person had learned martial arts or not just by grabbing their neck? However, were you hiding your true colors? At those words that came out of Lady Suk's mouth, Go-chan was dumbfounded. Should he consider this fortunate? Or should he see it as having aroused even more suspicion? She didn't seem to doubt him, but it appeared that Lady Suk had perceived it negatively. So this was your true self? At that moment, Mok Jaeonun spoke. That's not important right now. What? If the Manor Master were to pass away, it would be difficult for the eldest young master to become the Manor Master. You bastard. Squeeze. Lady Suk's grip tightened even more. Impudent fellow. Do you think I can't kill you right here? Who do you think you are, trying to negotiate with me? This is a bit painful. At Mok Jaeonun's words, she furrowed her brows. With this much force on his neck, it should be difficult for him to breathe, but his expression didn't change much. Was he not in pain? While she was puzzled, Mok Jaeonun said. I see. Negotiation requires a certain level of caution towards the other party. Caution? Do you think I would feel that towards the likes of you? Among the 4 sons of the Mok family, Mok Jaeonun had the most insignificant martial arts skills. Moreover, his mother had passed away, and his maternal family was practically ruined, so what could make her feel cautious? Right at that moment, demonic monk. As soon as those words were uttered. Flinch. Suddenly, a chilling sensation that made her spine shiver seized Lady Suk. Then, Lady Suk was suddenly pushed back as if she had collided with something. Whoosh! Lady Suk's eyes trembled as she was pushed back about 4 steps. What was that just now? Something had touched her, but it was invisible. In an instant, she raised her energy to create a reactive force as she was pushed, but the sensation was not just unpleasant, it even gave her goosebumps. Phew! At that moment, Mok Jae-eun, who had raised his upper body, twisted his neck to loosen it. Crack! Crack! Having someone grab your neck isn't a pleasant experience. At his relaxed tone, Lady Suk glared fiercely and spoke. You! What did you just do? What did I do? Just now, clearly. It was difficult to explain. Mok Jae-eun hadn't directly done anything to her. But what was that bizarre sensation? As she struggled to understand, Mok Jae-eun sat cross-legged on the bed and said, "Are you now inclined to negotiate? Negotiate? Don't make me laugh. It seems you had a hidden trick up your sleeve, but do you think that kind of luck will continue like it did just now? Is it still not enough? Then shall we try with a maid? What? The left one seems good. What are you talking about, the left one?" At the moment she was about to question him, everyone's gaze turned towards the direction of the screen. Lady Suk's eyes trembled. No, not just her eyes, but the eyes of everyone in the infirmary widened. It was because one of the maids that Lady Suk had brought with her had floated up to a height of about 1 jang, approximate 3.3 meters. MMPH. It seemed like she was trying to scream in surprise, but the maid's mouth was blocked as if something was covering it, making her mumble. At this sight, everyone was at a loss for words. What on earth was happening? Why was a perfectly fine maid floating up there by herself? This is impossible. Lady Suk's mind became complicated by this bizarre phenomenon. She had heard that among profound internal martial artists, there were those who could manipulate objects with their internal energy, or true chi. But it was highly unlikely that this young fellow was such a profound internal martial artist. Moreover, if he had exerted such profound true chi to lift the maid, she would have sensed some energy. What? What is this? Guard Go-chan was equally surprised. What was the meaning of this? Was this fake Mok Jae-eun hiding such a strange ability? Swish. At that moment, Mok Jae-eun casually raised a hand and made a gesture of slitting his throat. Right then, as if being grabbed by something, the maid floating in midair had her facial veins bulging grotesquely, and her eyes rolled back. It seemed like she would take her last breath at any moment. This is? The image of the dead diviner's corpse flashed in Lady Suk's mind. Startled by the sight, Lady Suk shouted, Stop. What are you saying? It's obvious that you're doing this. I don't know what kind of sorcery this is, but stop it right now. Well, since I'm trying to prove that I'm qualified to negotiate with the First Madam, wouldn't it be okay to take the life of one person? Mok Jae-eun smiled brightly. In contrast, Lady Suk's expression hardened even more. The maid, who seemed like she would take her last breath at any moment. If she were an ordinary maid, it would be one thing, but this girl had been serving Lady Suk since her main family, the Siaka clan. Clench. Biting her lip tightly, she shouted. Enough. Stop it. I'll listen to what you have to say about negotiation or whatever, so stop it right now. At her words, Mok Jae-eun lightly nodded. Then, thud. The maid, who was on the verge of taking her last breath, collapsed on the floor, unconscious. Soa. The other maid hurriedly checked on the condition of the unconscious girl. Fortunately, she let out a sigh of relief, indicating that her life wasn't in danger. Lady Suk was also relieved, but more than that, she became suspicious of Mok Jae-eun's bizarre ability. What on earth was this? It was a power unrelated to chi. It was closer to sorcery or a mysterious force. When did he learn such an eerie power? This bastard. Her mind was filled with doubts, but she couldn't figure out what this power was at the moment, so it was too risky to confront him recklessly. To do that, she should have brought only escort warriors who knew martial arts. Lady Suk, who had been glaring at Mok Jaehyun, opened her mouth. What do you want to negotiate? Since the Manor Master will pass away today or tomorrow, don't you need the Manor Master's seal? She didn't answer, but she didn't deny it either. In the first place, there was no reason to deny it. It was the only way to ensure the succession. However, something didn't make sense to her. If you knew that, you could have kept it hidden, so why are you telling me? Why am I telling you? Yes. You're also from the Mok family, so you should want to become the Manor Master. This was where she became suspicious. She couldn't understand why he was bringing up something that he could have kept hidden. If he used the Manor Master's seal, he could gain the support of the retainers. But I don't particularly want to become the Manor Master. What? At those words that came out of Mok Jaehyun's mouth, Lady Suk was momentarily speechless. He didn't want to become the Manor Master? He could become the head of a prestigious martial arts family that wielded power in the northern part of Anhui province, yet he didn't desire that? Are you expecting me to believe that? You don't believe me? Would you believe it if you were in my position? No, I wouldn't. You might think I'm lying. If there's no convincing reason. Firstly, as I said earlier, I have no interest in it, and secondly, I don't want to get involved in the succession battle and fight. How about that? You don't want to fight? Yes. To be precise, I have no interest, and I don't want to waste time on unnecessary things. At Mok Jaehyun's words, she frowned. Was this fellow now considering the matter of determining the head of the Great Yun Mok Sword Manor a waste of time? How much effort had she put in to make her own son, Mok Yong-ho, become the Manor Master? It was absurd in a different sense. Lady Suk stared intently at Mok Jaehyun and said, "If you truly don't want anything, tell me the location of the Manor Master's seal and the secret manual. Then I'll believe that you've really given up." At her words, Mok Jaehyun scoffed. "I can't do that." "Then I can't fully believe your words." "Don't believe me then. In that case, I'll make the same offer to the second young master." "What?" For a moment, Lady Suk's composure wavered. "What are you saying?" "It's exactly as you heard. Since the first madam seems to have trouble understanding, let me explain kindly. I may not need it, but are you and the eldest young master, Mok Yong-ho, the only ones who want the Manor Master's seal?" Her expression completely hardened. Seeing this, Mok Jaehyun smiled brightly and said, "It seems you now realize who holds the hilt of the sword." Chapter 15. Negotiation. Part 2. Bang. Upon returning to her residence, Haiwa Hall, the first Madam Lady Suk kicked a chair violently. The chair, infused with internal energy, split in half. Her face flushed red, she panted heavily. How dare he? Even when she was in the infirmary, she had tried her best to suppress her anger. But now that things had turned out like this, it was difficult to contain her rage. "Madam, please calm down." Hong, the escort warrior, cautiously tried to dissuade Lady Suk. In response, she spoke in an irritated voice. "Calm down? Do I look like I can calm down right now? I finally found and brought a skilled diviner, but instead, that outrageous fellow got his hands on the seal." "Arg! Madam!" Lady Suk grabbed the back of her neck. As her blood pressure rose, she closed her eyes, perhaps feeling dizzy. In fact, even though she kept the second son, the most cunning among the Mok family's children, and the youngest son, whom the Manor Master favored, in check, she had paid no attention to the third son, Mok Jaehyun. He had no talent in martial arts, and it was no exaggeration to say that his maternal family was almost ruined. Therefore, she had not paid any attention to him. But who would have thought that the fellow, who was never even considered, would turn out to be such a hidden threat? Clench. Lady Suk gritted her teeth. She had not anticipated that the fellow would negotiate like this over the manor master's seal. She had thought that he would readily spill the information with just a little intimidation. Was he always like this? The Mok Jayangan she knew did not have such a cunning side. Rather, he was close to being a coward and a scaredy cat. There were many anecdotes about him. Was he hiding his true self? Come to think of it, until his birth mother died, he was constantly described as being quite intelligent, if not a genius. Perhaps he did that to protect himself after that incident. If that was the case, he might be someone to be even more wary of. Although he had stated that he had no interest in the position of manor master, those who knew how to hide themselves and had strong patience were all the more terrifying. And that power. That bizarre power bothered her. The maid Sowa had suddenly floated up, her veins bulging, and she was about to take her last breath. Seeing that, the image of the dead diviner Myoshin had come to her mind. Sowa's condition was very similar to his. If that was the case, that fellow must have killed the diviner Myoshin as well. Are you referring to that Mok Jayangan? Yes. It certainly made sense if that was the case. The diviner, who was brought in because of his rumored skill, couldn't possibly have been possessed by an evil spirit and gone on a rampage. It had to be the doing of that Mok Jayangan. At Lady Suk's conviction, the escort warrior Hong leaped up. How dare he kill someone you summoned? Leave it to your subordinate. Before he can even use his sorcery, I will. Stop. But if the manor master's seal really ends up in the hands of the second son, Mokun Pyong, or the youngest son, Mok Yucheon, my son will have to bear the consequences. But if we let that fellow lead us around, who said anything about being led around? Pardon? Lady Suk took something out of a white porcelain vase on a shelf in the corner of the room. It was a small bead made of jade. The bead had a unique pattern engraved on it, and she handed it to the escort Hong. What is this? Take this and go to the ghostly spirit pavilion in Mengching. And inform the pavilion master about the fact that the diviner Myoshin was murdered. Ah. The escort Hoang, understanding her intention, nodded. Ghostly Spirit Pavilion. It was the group of diviners to which the deceased Myoshin belonged. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Slap. Guard Go Chan's head turned to the side from the slap. Guard Gam clicked his tongue, looking at him with disappointment. TSK, is it that difficult to monitor a mere novice? And no, it's not. I told you that you were allowed to subdue him, yet you took him to the main hall and back? Are you out of your mind to do such a thing? At Guard Gam's scolding words, Go-chan couldn't say anything. In fact, if it were up to him, he wanted to reveal everything that had happened while he was away. No, he had originally intended to do so. But now, he was hesitant to do that. Why do I feel so uneasy? With just martial arts, Master Gam could easily deal with that fellow whenever he wanted to. Yet, after experiencing the fake Mok Jayangan, he had become fearful of him. Not only did he have toxicity in his blood and that eerie sorcery, but what bothered him even more was that the fellow didn't seem human. If he carelessly made an enemy out of him, it seemed that the end wouldn't be good. Damn it. He didn't know what to make of this situation. When they found someone suitable to play the role of Mok Jayangan, it seemed good, but now he had no choice but to do as that impostor commanded. I trust that you will keep your mouth shut. Those words were quite ominous. Although the fellow was outside the infirmary and couldn't hear them, he strangely felt conscious of his presence. It was as if someone was watching him. Why was it like this? While he was engrossed in this strange feeling, Guard Gam, who had been clicking his tongue, spoke. If you let that fellow snoop around one more time, I won't let it slide. He won't be able to walk around easily for a while anyway, with his thigh pierced. Whether it's his thigh or whatever, don't let him draw attention. I understand. Anyway, you're sure you weren't caught by the first madam, right? Yes, I'm certain. I was right beside him. However, the first madam was displeased because he visited the main hall. To be precise, he held the first madam's weakness and negotiated with her. Go Chan's mouth was parched. The boundary of whose side he was on had become blurred. To think that he had to hide half of the truth from Master Gam, who he should be telling the facts to. Tsk tisk. Guard Gam shook his head from side to side. Indeed, that fellow was not suitable for the role. He had realized it when he killed the real Mok Jiangun on the spot, but as time passed, it would become more difficult to control him. We need to hurry. Even though he had warned him, if he continued to act on his own like this, things could go wrong later. A quick decision was needed on who to replace him with. Keep an eye on him without taking your eyes off him even for a moment. Won't you directly warn him? There are too many eyes watching. Inside the infirmary, there were pharmacists and attendants. Although they were mere servants, they were also in the position of escorts, so they couldn't interfere with them as they pleased, and they couldn't scold him in front of others, even if he was a fake. Moreover, he's cunning. It's not good to have a long conversation with that fellow. It was better to keep him in the dark about how the situation was unfolding. That way, it would be easier to replace him later and deal with him. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Regardless of this conversation taking place outside, Mok Jiangun was comfortably leaning back and reading a book, flipping through the pages. It was the synopsis of various philosophers, basic writings of the school of Yin and Yang. As he was flipping through the books, a certain passage caught Mok Jiangun's interest. When a dead person becomes a wandering spirit and turns into a monster, the level of the monster varies depending on various conditions. The basic writings of the school of Yin and Yang had a surprisingly detailed description of monsters. Based on this, the demonic monk could be considered a type of ghost or evil spirit that had become a monster from a wandering spirit. Low-level and weak wandering spirits take the form of earthbound spirits and can only influence the living by stimulating their sixth sense. According to the basic writings of the school of Yin and Yang, the levels of wandering spirits were divided into 7 stages. Putting aside various conditions and simply dividing the levels. The first level was the red spirit, an earthbound spirit that could influence the living by giving them goosebumps or a slight chill. The second level was the orange spirit. It could possess others, making their bodies feel heavy or causing them to feel sick enough to have a cold. The third level was the yellow spirit. From this level onwards, it was described as requiring exorcism as it was quite dangerous. In terms of level, a yellow spirit could not only weaken the possessed person but also lead them to death. Based on the level, the demonic monk is a yellow spirit. Even within the yellow spirit level, it was further divided into 3 stages based on the degree of danger. The lower stage could reveal its form and directly instill fear in humans. The middle stage could directly influence or inflict pain on living beings. The upper stage could kill the possessed person. Swoosh! At that moment, someone appeared like smoke, penetrating through the wall near the entrance of the infirmary. It was the demonic monk. Mok Jiangun didn't know, but it seemed that the demonic monk had a higher level than he thought. So that's what it meant by influencing living beings. He now understood why the demonic monk couldn't touch the corpse of the dead diviner Myoshin. It was because he was already dead. A dead body ultimately had no life, so it couldn't be influenced. I see. However, there were also things he learned that weren't described in the basic writings of the school of Yin and Yang. He had the demonic monk target the first madam, Lady Suk. But the moment the demonic monk lightly touched her, Lady Suk instantly reacted and was pushed back. They said that woman was a first-rate expert. On the other hand, the first madam's maid didn't even notice until the demonic monk directly threatened her life and was helplessly affected. What was the difference between them? Was it because the maid hadn't learned martial arts? Could it be that the power of monsters doesn't work well on those who have learned martial arts? The basic writings of the school of Yin and Yang didn't mention that aspect. Creak. At that moment, Guard Go-chan opened the door of the infirmary and entered. Mok Jiangun slightly raised the corners of his mouth and muttered. A good test subject. Pardon? Go-chan asked, puzzled. Ah, I wasn't talking to you, guard Go-chan. Shall we try lightly lifting your arm? Young master, what do you mean by that? Right at that moment. Flinch. Go-chan felt a chilling sensation throughout his body. It was a bizarre feeling that went beyond the realm of the five senses, which could be called the body's sensations. Lift. Huh? Go-chan's arm suddenly tried to lift upwards. What? The startled Go-chan sent his internal energy to resist it. However, Go-chan's arm, which was trembling as he resisted, couldn't hold out for long and was forcibly lifted up. What is this? Go-chan was utterly perplexed as he couldn't understand what was happening. But he soon realized why this was happening. Why, young master? Mok Jiangnan gently waved his hand. Then, as if someone had let go of his wrist, Go-chan was able to lower his wrist that had been forcibly lifted. Although his wrist was lowered, Go-chan, who seemed very surprised, said to Mok Jiangnan, "What on earth did you just do?" "I just needed to confirm something." "Confirm?" "Yes." "Why did you do that to me?" "You were just the right fit." "Aren't you a second-rate warrior, guard Go-chan?" "That's right, but what exactly are you trying to confirm?" "You don't need to know." "Yeah, you won't tell me nicely anyway." Go-chan stood in front of the bed with a face that couldn't hide his discomfort. Damn that bastard. He slightly regretted that it might have been better to tell Master Gam exactly what had happened. Regardless of that, Mok Jiangnan nodded to himself as if he had learned something. It works on guard Go-chan. Go-chan also immediately noticed the moment the demonic monk grabbed his wrist. Perhaps because he had learned internal energy, his senses were definitely more sensitive than ordinary people. Although he resisted for a bit, he couldn't overcome the demonic monk's strength. The demonic monk's power works smoothly on ordinary people and up to second-rate warriors. That was the criterion for stable effectiveness. Although it hadn't been definitively verified yet, perhaps the power of a yellow-level monster might not have a significant effect on first-rate experts. If that was the case, it might be a bit disappointing. Well, even so, it's not like it's not useful. The demonic monk, a monster, had high utility in many ways. Just like how he had eavesdropped on the conversation between Go-chan and Guard Gam earlier, he could also send him to monitor if the distance was close, and it was good to send him for reconnaissance in blocked areas. How useful was that? Suddenly, as Mok Jiangnan read the passages below in the basic writings of the school of Yin and Yang, he had such a thought. It wouldn't be bad to obtain an even stronger monster. The 4th level, Green Spirit, very dangerous. Exorcism is a compulsory. A wandering spirit that has existed for more than several decades. It can influence surrounding objects and cause auditory hallucinations, enough to confuse the living. Chapter 16. Negotiation. Part 3. The second young master, Makun Pyong, had grand ambitions. From a young age, he not only mastered the sword techniques of the Yun Mok sword manner, but also the fist techniques of the Hui Beicheng family, his mother Lady Zhang's maternal family, demonstrating his exceptional martial arts talent. Therefore, he was confident that he would naturally become the next leader of the Yun Mok sword manner. The eldest legitimate son, Mok Yang-ho, was greedy and indulged in women and alcohol, lacking the qualities of a successor, so Makun Pyong believed that the order of succession would naturally fall to him. However, that was a miscalculation. Mok Yucheon. The leader's favor was with him, the youngest son. It was understandable, as he possessed innate martial arts talent, mastering all the martial arts of the Yun Mok sword manner at the mere age of 14 and reaching the level of a first-rate expert. As Mok Yucheon stood out, the leader kept delaying the decision on the succession. Makun Pyong was certain that the leader's heart was swayed towards him. I can't miss this opportunity. He considered the leader's life being in danger as an opportunity. Fortunately, Mok Yucheon was the son of a lowly concubine and had no power around him. Unless the leader directly declared him as the successor, he was in a position where it would be difficult for him to become the leader with his own strength. Therefore, the key was to eliminate the other candidates for succession. If I only consider them, no one can match me. Both of them were the epitome of incompetence. The eldest young master, Mok Yon-ho, only knew how to indulge in women and alcohol, while the third young master, Mok Jae-un, was an incompetent coward. However, behind Mok Yon-ho was the first madam, Lady Suk. As she was from the Jinhwa Suk family, she held considerable power. Moreover, there were still many old fools among the retainers who advocated for the priority of the eldest son, Mok Jae-un. Among the brothers, the one who was inferior in all aspects except for his face that resembled a courtesan's companion had been coveting the position of successor for some time. The first madam looked down on him and paid no attention to him, but Mok-un Pyong was different. Was it Guard Gam? He had an escort who was beyond his station. He was called Guard Gam, and when Mok-un Pyong first saw him, his martial arts skills were extraordinary enough to request the leader to make him his escort. So, out of curiosity, he investigated his background and discovered quite an interesting fact. No, it should be called a fact that required caution. Because of this, Mok-un Pyong came to believe that he shouldn't carelessly let his guard down around the third young master, Mok Jae-un. However, an unexpected event occurred. Was the heavens helping him? You want to become my man? Mok-un Pyong barely managed to calm the corners of his twitching mouth. The man kneeling on one knee in front of him, paying his respects, was none other than Mok Jae-un's escort warrior, Guard Gam. The man he had wanted so much had come to him on his own. At a very opportune moment. Please accept me, young master. Seeing Guard Gam like this, Mok-un Pyong stroked his chin and spoke. Accept you. It's quite tempting. At Mok-un Pyong's words, Guard Gam inwardly thought that it was a good start. Guard Gam, who had planned to observe the leader's condition and the surrounding situation before making a decision, ultimately chose the second young master, Mok-un Pyong. The eldest, Mok Yon-ho, was too influenced by the first madam, and the youngest, Mok Yu-cheon, had nothing but his own martial prowess. Although he's cunning, he's actually easier to handle this way. Therefore, he chose Mok-un Pyong as an alternative to the dead real Mok Jae-un. Mok-un Pyong was cunning and suspicious, but Guard Gam was confident that he would accept him due to his greed for talent. However, but you know, the timing is quite exquisite. Pardon? As you know, I have a high regard for Guard Gam. But for you to ask me to accept you right before the succession competition, it makes me suspicious. As expected. At Mok-un Pyong's words, Guard Gam slightly nodded his head. He had already guessed that Mok-un Pyong, who was naturally skeptical, wouldn't believe him right away. I understand. However, I have a reason why I can no longer serve young master Mok Jae-un. A reason why you can't serve Mok Jae-un? Yes. What is it? I can't tell you right away. At those words, Mok-un Pyong scoffed. What was the point of not revealing the reason why he couldn't serve him anymore? While Mok-un Pyong found it absurd, Guard Gam smiled brightly and said, That's because it's one of Mok Jae-un's weaknesses, so it's difficult for me to tell you right away. If you accept me, I can tell you as much as you want. Huh? Are you negotiating with me now? Please understand my situation. Understand. Then, let's consider what you just said as something for the future. Can you tell me about his other weaknesses? Of course. What are they? Young Master Mok Jae-un currently cannot use martial arts at all. What? One of Mok-un Pyong's eyebrows twitched with interest. Is that true? There's not a shred of falsehood. Did he suffer from a mental disorder? You could say it's similar. In fact, since he was a fake, he couldn't have learned martial arts in the first place. However, he couldn't publicize the fake Mok Jae-un's death by revealing this fact, so he glossed over it. Huh. At Guard Gam's words, Mok-un Pyong's face brightened. That was to be expected, as the Yun Mok Sword Manor was a martial arts family. If the person who was to become the leader of a group that cultivated martial arts couldn't use martial arts, it was no different from losing the qualification to be the leader. You're saying that he lost his martial arts? He already lacked talent in martial arts, but if he couldn't use martial arts at all, the situation was different. He didn't even have the qualifications to participate in the succession competition. To Makun Pyong, who couldn't hide his joy, Guard Gam said, "If you accept me, I can provide you with even more useful information." At his words, Makun Pyong pretended to contemplate for a moment, then smirked and said, "I thought Guard Gam was playing the role of Huang Gai at the Red Cliffs." Desperate strategy. In the Battle of Red Cliffs, there was a story of Huang Gai, a retainer of Sun Quan of the Wu Kingdom, pretending to be tortured and falsely surrendering to Cao Cao of the Wei Kingdom. Makun Pyong had thought that Guard Gam might be a spy sent by Mok Jiang-un, knowing that he had coveted him for a long time. In response, Guard Gam chuckled and said, "I'm embarrassed to say this about my former master, but young Master Mok Jiang-un doesn't have the capacity to even think of such a strategy." Ha ha ha. That's probably true. Then will you accept me? Of course. How can I let go of such a talented person? At Makun Pyong's words, Guard Gam bowed his head in gratitude. Thank you for accepting me. No, I should be the one thanking Guard Gam for making the right decision for the Yun Mok sword matter. But I'm sorry to ask you for a favor right after you've joined me. At those words, Guard Gam tapped his chest and spoke heartily. Please give me any order. For now, he had to make a good impression on Makun Pyong. However, unexpected words came out of Makun Pyong's mouth. I thought Guard Gam, who was once an assassin, would be more than capable of doing it. Guard Gam's expression stiffened. He had suspected it, but he didn't expect Makun Pyong to have investigated his past. He knew Makun Pyong was cunning, but he had considered him still a novice, so it seemed he had let his guard down. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Late in the hour of the Zhu hour, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. It was a time when everyone was asleep, and even the escort warriors guarding the front of the infirmary were dozing off. Clatter. Oh ho. When he opened the medicinal herb drawer labeled Ouyang, a hidden entrance was revealed. Perhaps because it was a secret space, it didn't make as much noise as he had worried. Mok Jiang-un entered the hidden entrance with a lamp in hand. Crunch crunch. He quietly descended the underground stairs. The stairs extended quite deep, more than he had expected. It's deep. It wasn't just one floor, but it went down more than 2 floors deep, which made him suspicious. It was quite deep for a space created to hide the leader's seal and a secret manual. When he had entered to a depth of about 3 floors, a cavity about 1/3 the size of the infirmary came into view. Ah! In the cavity, there were 4 entrances that looked like stone doors. And above the stone doors, the characters Jai Bingding were engraved. Medicinal Hall. Underground. Zhang, stone, door. Inside, Mok Jiang-un recalled what the leader had said. Since he had said it was inside the Zhang stone door among the 4 passages, there was no need to examine the other passages first. He could just enter that one. Mok Jiang-un approached the Zhang stone door. When he opened the stone door, a straight tunnel passage was revealed. About 20 steps? That was roughly the distance. Mok Jiang-un, who was about to step inside, put his raised foot back on the ground and stopped. It was because he suddenly noticed something on the ceiling of the tunnel passage. What is that? On the bumpy ceiling of the tunnel passage, there were holes large enough to insert 2 or 3 fingers if he reached out his hand. If there was only one, it might not have been noticeable, but they were located at regular intervals along the passage, extending all the way inside. Puzzled by this, Mok Jiang-un surveyed his surroundings. He noticed a few fist-sized stones on one side of the cavity. Just in case. Mok Jiang-un picked up a stone and tapped it on his hand, then threw it inside the passage. Clack! Before the stone could even roll on the ground. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At that moment, sharp spears shot out from the right and left sides of the floor. If he had entered without knowing, his legs or thighs would have been pierced by the spears. Seeing this, Mok Jiang-un raised one corner of his mouth. Interesting. Did they install such traps because they were afraid that someone might steal the seal and the secret manual? It seemed quite excessive for that purpose. Was the seal and the secret manual really inside? Mok Jae-eun, who had been staring into the tunnel, clenched and unclenched his hands repeatedly. "I'll know when I see it." For now, he had to go inside to find out. Mok Jae-eun bit the handle of the lamp with his mouth and, without hesitation, jumped up towards the holes visible on the tunnel ceiling and inserted 3 fingers. Grab. An ordinary person would find it difficult to support their body with just 2 fingers, but it wasn't a challenging task for Mok Jae-eun. Swish. Grab. Mok Jae-eun reached out his left hand to the hole in front and inserted his index and middle fingers. In this way, Mok Jae-eun moved about 2 steps along the ceiling. I was right. As expected, his guess was correct. If he inserted his fingers into the holes on the ceiling and moved without touching the ground, the tunnel's traps wouldn't be triggered. Realizing this, Mok Jae-eun advanced without a moment's hesitation, inserting his fingers into the holes on the ceiling in front of the passage. Grab. 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 After moving about 20 steps like that, the tunnel passage ended, and a space of about 7 pyeong, approximately 23 square meters, came into view. Mok Jae-eun's eyes flickered with interest as he entered. What is this? Inside, there were several sacks, and the surroundings were filled with numerous traces. Footprints? In the deeply worn-out parts of the floor, there were numerous footprints, and there were also many traces of impacts on the walls. Mok Jae-eun walked over and looked inside the sacks. There were small pellets inside, and after sniffing them, Mok Jae-eun realized what they were. Pill for abstaining from grains, by Jokdan? By Jokdan. It was a pill made by mixing pine pollen and various grains, used by Taoist practitioners for closed-door cultivation in places like caves. It was meant to supplement the minimum amount of grain energy, but depending on the combination, it could also help expel toxins from the body. Mok Jae-eun, who had extensive knowledge of medicinal herbs, had often eaten Baijokdan made by his grandfather as a snack. Why are there sacks of Baijokdan here? It seemed to be for the purpose of staying here for a long time. Had someone been practicing martial arts or something here alone? Mok Jae-eun, who had been fiddling with the Baijokdan inside the sack, soon turned his gaze elsewhere. On one side of the wall, there was something like a display case, and inside it were several wooden boxes. Is that it? Mok Jae-eun approached it and opened one of the eye-catching wooden boxes. When he opened it, a book was inside. Ignited with sword formation, see notes at the end of this chapter for explanation. Is this the secret manual? Mok Jae-eun took out the book and flipped through it quickly. Inside, numerous sword techniques and movements were described in detail. Although he hadn't learned martial arts, he could at least tell that this was swordsmanship. Is this it? He wasn't sure if this was exactly the secret manual that the first madam was after. In the first place, he had no idea what the martial arts of the Yun Mok sword manner were, so there was nothing he could do about it. Mok Jae-eun opened another wooden box. Click. When he opened the box. Ignited with heart transformation technique, see notes for explanation. A book titled Ignited with Heart Transformation Technique was inside. Mok Jae-eun took it out, flipped through it quickly, and nodded his head. It seemed to be a pair with the ignited wood sword formation in front, and it contained detailed descriptions of breathing techniques and chi circulation methods for gathering and controlling internal energy. I should take this too. Mok Jae-eun opened the other boxes in order. The other boxes didn't contain any books related to martial arts, but there were a few unexpectedly interesting items. However, the leader's seal was still nowhere to be seen. This is the only box left. There was nothing else around. So Mok Jae-eun took out the box that was near the floor. But unlike the other wooden boxes, this box had an old paper with patterns drawn on it attached to the opening part. Judging from the paper torn in half, it seemed to have been attached as a sign not to open the box. Mok Jae-eun opened it without much thought. He naturally thought that the leader's seal would be inside, but Mok Jiangun tilted his head. Inside, there was no manor master's seal that should have been there, but an old book surrounded by a red rosary, emitting an extremely pungent smell. But what was surprising was that the cover of the book, is this, human skin? No matter how he looked at it, it seemed to be made of human skin. If an ordinary person had realized that this was made of human skin, they might have been frightened, but Mok Jiangun showed a quite intrigued expression. What could this be? He was about to reach out his hand at that very moment. Swoosh! At that instant, something appeared like smoke, penetrating through the ceiling. It was none other than the demonic monk. Mok Jiangun had made him keep watch above, just like with guard Go Chan, so his appearance meant that someone was approaching the infirmary. As expected, the demonic monk was trying to say something. But when the demonic monk saw the item inside the wooden box in Mok Jiangun's hand, dash! He trembled all over. Thud! He prostrated himself on the floor and began to perform something like a bow with a face full of reverence, raising both hands upward.